There's a quiet, almost invisible code that separates the men women chase from the men who chase women. You've probably seen it. Some guys barely lift a finger and women orbit them like planets around a star, while others pour their time, energy, and emotions into pursuit and get ignored. The paradox stings. The more you try, the less it works. And what's worse, nobody really tells you why. It's not about looks or money, not fully. It's not about lines or tactics either. At the root, it's about presence, power, and psychology. There are certain men who carry themselves in a way that activates something deep in the female mind, not through words, but through behavior, through a quiet but potent alignment with ancient truths about value, dominance, and emotional control. These are the kinds of truths Machiavelli would whisper in your ear if he were your dating coach. Not because he wants you to deceive or manipulate, but because he understood human nature better than almost anyone in history. He knew that people respect power, but they crave mystery, and that the one who commands his own value never has to beg for someone else's approval. If you learn to embody that principle, you won't need to chase. She'll come to you. The first shift is recognizing just how repelling neediness is. When a man constantly reaches out, double texts, showers her with compliments, or tries to be available every second, he thinks he's showing love. But what he's really broadcasting is emptiness. Women don't run from affection, they run from desperation. That energy whispers, I don't have enough going on in my life, so I need you to give it meaning. And she feels it even if she can't explain why she's pulling away. But when you turn that around, when you move from grasping to grounded, something changes. Picture this. Two men show interest in the same woman. One floods her with messages, attention, and offers to drop anything for her. The other is warm but composed. He listens, engages, and connects, but he's not trying to win her. He's living a full life. His time is valuable. His affection is intentional. One of these men becomes background noise. The other becomes a challenge. Guess which one she thinks about more? The second man is attractive not because he's aloof, but because he's self-contained. His attention feels earned, not automatic. And this taps into something fundamental. We value what we have to earn. When affection is cheap and freely given without any cost, it feels disposable. But when someone's attention is rare, when it's tied to discernment and self-respect, it becomes meaningful. This doesn't mean playing games or pretending to be busy. It means actually being busy with your goals, with your passions, with your growth. So when you do connect with her, it's not because you need her. It's because you choose her. And that choice, made from a place of fullness instead of emptiness, is intoxicating. The men women crave. Don't try to impress them with constant validation. They impress by standing still in their value, by not chasing what doesn't chase them. When she pulls back, they don't panic, they mirror. Not to manipulate, but to signal self-respect. You reply when she replies. You initiate when there's mutual energy. If she disappears, you let her. That kind of restraint is magnetic because it tells her you don't fear losing her. And the man who isn't afraid to lose is the one who's hardest to forget. Attraction isn't about filling her inbox. It's about living a life she wants to be part of. And when you stop chasing, something strange often happens. She starts to notice. She wonders where you went. Why aren't you blowing up her phone like everyone else? What are you doing that's more important than her? That curiosity becomes tension, and that tension becomes interest. People value what they invest in. If she has to wonder about you, think about you, make an effort to connect, that effort deepens her attraction. She begins to see you not as an option she controls, but as a man with standards. And that shift changes everything. Another secret? Don't tell her everything. Keep parts of yourself tucked away, not because you're hiding anything, but because mystery creates movement. In a world obsessed with oversharing, the man who leaves things unsaid becomes irresistible. It's simple. If she knows everything about you after one date, what's left? No tension, no curiosity, no reason to chase. But when you reveal yourself in layers, just enough to spark her interest, but not so much that there's nothing left to discover, she leans in. She wants more. And that desire is the fuel of attraction. You don't need to narrate your whole life. You don't need to over-explain, justify, or prove anything. If she asks about your past, share enough to be honest, but not everything. Let her earn the deeper layers. Drop a hint about something you're working on, then change the subject. Let her imagine what's underneath. That space between what she knows and what she doesn't, that's where desire lives. When you keep some mystery, she keeps guessing. She starts to invest emotionally because she's intrigued. She starts to project her own fantasies onto you, and those fantasies become stronger than anything you could ever say. Being mysterious also means being a little unpredictable, not chaotic, but spontaneous. Maybe you surprise her with an unexpected gesture. Maybe you disappear for a day because you're off doing something meaningful. You don't need to explain every action. You're not reporting to her, you're living your life. And if she's interested, she'll follow. This isn't about being cold, it's about showing you're not available on demand, that your energy is sacred, that she's not entitled to your time just because you like her. And when she realizes that, her respect for you grows. The truth is, most people today overshare everything on dates, online, in texts. But real intimacy isn't built through information. It's built through emotional pacing. Let things unfold naturally. Let her feel the weight of your presence when you're together and the mystery of your absence when you're not. When a man can balance openness with restraint, interest with distance, attention with detachment, he becomes unforgettable. Women don't want a man who's constantly available. They want a man who makes them feel something, and that feeling is born from mystery. But none of this works if you can't master your emotions. Because the moment you react out of insecurity, the mask drops. Emotional instability is a signal of weakness, and Machiavelli knew that. Those who can't rule themselves will never rule others. If a woman can provoke you into overreacting, whether by canceling plans, flirting with someone else, or simply going quiet, you've already lost your power. A powerful man doesn't chase. He doesn't beg. He doesn't lash out. He stays centered always. And that calmness is rare. It's valuable. It tells her this man cannot be shaken by small things. He doesn't need my approval to feel whole. And because of that, she's drawn to him, not just emotionally, but biologically. A man who is emotionally in control signals strength, and strength is attractive, always has been, always will be. So if you want her to see you as more than just another guy, don't just say the right things, embody the right energy. Stop overthinking every message. Stop reacting to every shift in her mood, and start anchoring yourself in something deeper, in your own value, in your own rhythm. That's what she'll notice. That's what she'll remember. Now, you may be thinking all of this sounds cold, but it's not. It's deeply human. Women don't want perfect men. They want centered men. Men who have emotional gravity, men who can handle pressure without collapsing. When you become that man, not only will she chase you, she'll fight to keep you, because in a world full of boys seeking attention, the man who commands his own stands alone. Separates the men women chase from the men they forget is not charm or technique, it's detachment. Not the kind of detachment that is numb or indifferent, but the kind rooted in strength. In a world where most men give away their power the moment they feel attraction, The man who can want without needing, desire without depending, care without clinging, he becomes rare. And that rarity becomes his magnetism. Detachment means your identity is not built on her response. If she replies, great. If she doesn't, you're still whole. You move, you build, you grow, with or without her. That kind of man can't be manipulated. He can't be guilt tripped or emotionally swayed because his center of gravity is internal, not external. And the truth is, women test men not because they're cruel, but because they want to know, can he handle it? Can he hold his frame when pressure comes? If the answer is yes, he wins not just her curiosity, but her respect. Respect is the doorway to real attraction. You can make her laugh, you can dress well, you can have chemistry, but if she doesn't respect you, none of it lasts. And respect comes from boundaries. Machiavelli would tell you the one who cannot enforce his boundaries has no power. And power, even in romantic dynamics, is the hidden currency. A man without boundaries says yes to everything. He accommodates. He adjusts, he becomes agreeable in order to win affection, and in doing so, he loses value because nothing is less attractive than a man who betrays himself for attention. But when you have clear standards, when you say no without fear, when you walk away without drama, when you refuse to be treated like an option, you become the one she can't stop thinking about. Why? Because now she has to rise to meet you. She has to chase. And that reversal changes everything. It's not about playing hard to get. It's about actually being hard to get because your time, your energy, your presence, they're not freely given. They're earned. And not through manipulation, but through alignment. You know what you want, you know who you are, and you refuse to bend just to avoid being alone. That's the man women remember because he doesn't need them to feel like a man. He already is one. Now, you don't have to be perfect to embody this. You just have to stop leaking your value. Every time you overpursue, you signal that you think she's better than you. Every time you chase validation, you imply your worth is dependent on her attention. But the truth is, if you're building yourself physically, financially, emotionally, you are the prize. Not because she isn't valuable, but because you are. And if you don't believe it, she won't either. So stop proving, stop explaining, stop convincing her you're enough. Let your actions speak. Let your silence speak louder. There's a reason some men never have to justify themselves. They live with such purpose that their value becomes self-evident. You can feel it in the way they walk, the way they speak, the way they withhold. They're not rude, they're rooted. And women feel that even if they can't articulate it, they respond to it because it activates something primal. The man who is unfazed, the man who moves with calm certainty, that's the man they follow. Not because he commands them, but because he commands himself. This is why manipulation never works long term. Tricks, tactics, games. They can attract, but they can't sustain. Eventually, the mask slips. But when you become this kind of man for real, not as a gimmick, but as a philosophy, you won't need games. You'll simply be rare. And rarity is more seductive than any pickup line. Think about it. When was the last time she met a man who wasn't trying to impress her, who wasn't seeking her approval, who wasn't afraid to lose her? That contrast alone sets you apart. It makes her pause, it makes her wonder, and that wonder is where desire begins. Machiavelli understood something most men never learn. Power is silent. The more you chase, the more you speak, the more you explain, you reveal that you have none. But the man who doesn't explain, who doesn't rush, who doesn't react, he speaks through restraint. That's real dominance, not control over others, but control over self. You control your time, your reactions, your words. You don't speak just to fill silence. You don't move just to get a response. You move with intent. You speak when it matters. And that makes everything you do carry more weight. Even silence becomes a statement. If she pulls back, you don't chase. If she disrespects you, you disappear. Not to punish, but to protect your energy. That absence teaches her more than any argument. It says, I value myself more than your validation. And that kind of self-respect is so rare, it feels like strength. Because it is. But here's the twist. Once you stop needing her, you become more desirable to her. It's backwards, but true. When your happiness doesn't depend on her reply, when your schedule doesn't revolve around her availability, when your self-worth isn't tied to her interests, you create space for real connection, one rooted in choice, not need. And choice is far more attractive than dependence. She wants to be chosen by a man who doesn't need to choose anyone. That's the paradox. That's the power. So how do you get there? You stop waiting. You stop scrolling through her feed, analyzing every emoji, every pause in her replies. You stop asking, what should I say to make her like me? And start asking, what am I building without her? The men women chase are builders, builders of purpose, builders of identity, builders of reality. When you're busy constructing something meaningful, you don't have time to obsess over someone's attention. And that lack of obsession becomes your strength. It doesn't mean you don't care. It means you don't collapse. And women respect that more than flowers, more than dinners, more than compliments. They respect the man who holds the line, who shows up without losing himself, who connects without compromising. That's the man who lingers in her mind long after the others fade away. And if she leaves, let her. That's the final rule. The man women chase never clings. He understands that anyone who walks away wasn't meant to stay. And instead of mourning it, he multiplies. He goes deeper into his work, into his mind, into his growth. Because he knows that power doesn't beg. Power attracts. That's why some men walk into a room and get noticed without speaking. That's why some men never chase, yet never lack attention. They embody something ancient, something Machiavellian. Not cruel, not manipulative, but deeply aware of value, their own first and only then others. So if you're tired of chasing, stop. Start becoming. Start building. Start mastering silence. Master your emotions. Master your boundaries. Because when you become the man she can't control, you become the man she can't forget. And that's the game most men